Well, this is going to be an interesting video. I really think this is going to be a useful video for those who are creating more complicated designs. Now, this is a little catfish design, and if we look at this here in our layers palette, you could see it's comprised of a lot of pieces. Like, there is a lot going on here. And let's go ahead and just take a look at the issue real quick in simulator mode. So aside from creating the stitches, which was a bit of a project, if I were sitting down to just create this logo, it would take me about an hour to digitize this. Okay, um, to get it to the point that you see it here on the screen. But where our challenge is right here, and this is what no one will talk to you about, is what it really takes to make a good embroidery design. So you can see here, if I go into my info panel here, we have 48 thread jumps and 11 trims for a small left chest design. Now that is absolutely nutty. You do not want to have that situation going on. When our machine stops to do a thread trim, a lot of bad things can happen when it's doing a thread trim. And you have to slow down, cut the thread, and then move to the next position and speed back up, and only to turn around and cut the thread again. And you can see that happening over and over and over and over here for just a small 3700 stitch design. So what we have to do is we have to go in and really kind of clean this up and figure out how we want this to stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here we're going to stitch this element first and then this element, and all we're going to do is click on this button right here, and it says lower to bottom. Okay, and so now you can see it's at the bottom of our layer stack. Now specifically I want the top arch to stitch first and then the next one. So we could even name this to kind of keep control. Top arch, okay, and then bottom arch, okay. Now when we're done with those two, I think it's a good idea just to turn those off, okay. Now those are an island, so that's an island. So those are separated, they're not close together, so there's going to be a thread trim between those two. So the next thing that I want to do is all of these pieces. I would like all of these pieces to stitch next. So if our top and bottom arches here, let's move those down, right? Let's move those down. So that is the next part of this to stitch. But how do we want this to stitch exactly? So what I want to do, I think, is we have to think about how we want this to route and path, okay? So I think what I want to do is, let me just think here for a second. How do I want this to be? All right. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to stitch from all of these are connecting, right? All of these are connecting. So what we need to do, so we'll just start right here, okay? And I'll try and explain how this is going to work. So we have this here. So let's go into params first of all and take a look at this. Is it stitching from left to right? I need this to stitch from left to right, and you can see it's stitching from right to left, okay? So we'll choose apply and quit. So what we need to do is change the direction of this path, okay? Let's go back into params. So you see again, it's stitching from right to left, so we'll choose apply and quit. So we'll go up here to path, and we're going to choose reverse, okay? So now, when we look at that, it should stitch from left to right, And that's what we need, because the closest connection point is right there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this piece and we're going to move it right here on top of the bottom arch, because that's where we're going to start our stitching. And then we're going to select this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, in the order we want these to stitch. Okay? And then we're going to go into Extensions, InkStitch, Edit, Restack Objects in the order of selection. So however we created them, they're going to be restacked so that they're stitching in order. So you see that it's the bottom one, then the next one, and then the next one, and so on and so forth, right? So this is stitching from left to right, but this one, we want the connection point right there. Okay? So it needs to stitch from right to left. So let's go into params and see if it is. And you can see it's not. So we'll choose swap rails, and it's still not. So then if we come up here and choose reverse both rails, now you can see it is. Excellent. Okay? But here's where the problem is. We don't actually want that to stitch from right to left. And the reason for that is because we need it to connect up top here. Okay? So we really do need it to stitch from left to right. So let's verify that it is stitching from left to right. This is the part that, this is not the fun part. So it is. It's stitching from left to right. But how do we get from the end of this, because we need that connection point right there, to where this begins? Well, that's where we're going to use the Extensions, InkStitch, and Tool Stroke, Jump Stitch to Stroke. And we'll just accept these defaults here and hit apply. And you will see that it will create us a little jump stitch here. Now this is really wide because it's a millimeter wide, so I always back that off. We'll do 0.1. And then we will come in here on that jump stitch, just double click on it to add a node, and then we can kind of control the path exactly how that's going to go. Okay? And I always back it off at the beginning and at the end. So now this is going to come up, and now how is this going to stitch? Because we need to stitch from left to right again. And it is stitching from left to right, but we need to get where this ends, we need to get to where this begins. Okay, let's look at this piece real quick. Let's see where this ends first of all. This is a really important part. So this piece is going to start here, and it's going to come over. Where does it end? It ends on the inside. Excellent. That's what we need it to, because we're going to connect right there. Okay? So we'll go ahead and take this and this, and we're going to do that same thing. I have a keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt-J to give us our jump stitch option here. So there again, we'll select our jump stitch. We'll go to 0.1. I wish there was a setting where we could always have that jump stitch be whatever we want, but there's not. So we do have to change it every time. So that's a bummer. I back it off a little bit. And now those are connected. So then we have to do the same thing. So how is this stitching? Is it starting from left to right? It is. So that part's good, but now we're going to need a jump from here to here. So let's just go ahead and add that jump. I'm not going to see which side this piece ends on. You can see, because the jump is from that side, we know it ends on that side. So 0.1. So this is what they don't show you. uh, when when they're doing those, I've watched a lot of InkStitch videos and like they're click 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 and okay, now you're done. Well, you find out real quick there's a little bit more to it than what they actually show. And even some other embroidery software, I always wonder like, man, you're not really showing all of it. You're just showing one little piece of the puzzle there. So now we have to see how we need this to end up top in order to make our next connection here. But let me think about this for a second because we may need to change this because the only way that this can end is over here. It can't end over here the way this is currently drawn. So that is a problem because in order to make the connection from here to here, it would have to jump over finished embroidery, which that is not ideal. So let me just change this a little bit. So we're going to come in here, we're going to change this, and then we're going to delete that one. So we're just going to change that up a little bit. Okay. So first of all, let's see which direction that is stitching. We need it to end up top. So is it stitching from left to right currently? Ooh, running stitch along. Okay. My bad. We need to break it apart right there. So now we can convert that into stitches. And it's going from right to left. Now we have some issues there, but we'll fix that with some node issues there. So we do need to swap the rails. Reverse both rails. Okay, I think that works. So what do we got going on here? What is our issue here? Just that? All right, let's take a look at this. Yep, I guess that's how it's going to have to be. So we'll go ahead and settle for that. And then this connecting to this, let's see if that's going from left to right. And it is. You see where it's ending. It's ending over here. So we'll choose apply and quit. So we really don't want that. So let's reverse our first rail. We want it to end on the opposite side. And so it is ending on the opposite side, but let's reverse the second rail. That's ending down there. We can't have, so what are we going to do here? Because we need it to let's see here. How are we going to do this? We might have to just do a thread trim there. I don't know, because I need this to end over here. So I need it to start right here, but I need it to end up here. So let's go through the options again. So it's usually it's a combination of swap rails. It's starting there, but it's ending down here, and I need it to end up there. So it's starting in the right spot, but let's see if I choose to swap the second rail. It's starting there again, but it's ending at the bottom again, which we don't need. So let's swap the first rail, and now it's not stitching in the right order. And doing both rails doesn't fix the problem. So I guess we'll just go with the default here of automatic and choose apply and quit, and we'll have a thread trim between this one and this one. Okay. So we do want to make sure that this one is stitching from left to right. So let's go ahead and check the params on that. And it's not. So we will switch that out. And again, ideally we would want it to stitch the opposite direction and end up here instead of ending down here. So let's see if we can make that happen. We will reverse our first rail. It is stitching from the inside. And it's ending up top. Excellent. So that one we did get to go. This one here, we are going to have to add a thread trim. So we'll go back into params because we couldn't get it to quite do what we wanted to. So we'll hit trim after on that piece. And then this piece here, we want it to stitch from left to right. So we'll go into that param. And it is stitching from left to right, so that's good. So now we got to get from here to here with our thread jump. So Control-Alt-J, apply. Excellent. So there's our thread jump. Back that off to point 1. Double click here to control our path a little bit here. There we go. That takes care of that. So this one here, we need it to stitch from left to right. So we'll go into params. And it is stitching from left to right. So we're going to go from where this is. Now we did not see where this ended, but let's go ahead and add our jump between those two pieces. Our routing line. We got lucky. It's ending on the right side there, so point 1. Tuck that in. Back that off a little bit. Perfect. Our next piece is it stitching from left to right. It is. So that's good. So then we just need to go from here to here with a little jump stitch. Excellent. So back that up to point 1. Okay. Excellent. And then this piece here, is it stitching from left to right? Or actually, this one we need to stitch from right to left. So we'll swap the rails. That's not doing it, so we will swap both rails. And there you go, it is. So what this is going to do is this is going to, this is going to come, stitch, stitch, stitch. We have one thread trim, stitch, 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 all the way up here. Then it's going to come down to this. And because this distance is so small, it'll make that little jump. But this has to start from the top down. Actually, we'll start it from the bottom up. That's what we'll do. There we go. Stitching from the bottom up. So we need our jump stitch between these two. And we'll hit apply. So now we have our jump stitch. So same thing, point 1. Double click. Like so. Double click like so. Okay, so now it's going to end up here. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to connect it to this piece. So we are going to have a little thread jump between those two. let's make sure that this is stitching from, it really doesn't matter necessarily. I guess we'll stitch this from the bottom up. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure that is stitching from the bottom up. And it is. Perfect. So now we'll have a little thread jump between here and here. So let's go ahead and add that. And we will choose apply. So we will go ahead and do 0.1. And then this one we're going to tuck right there. Tuck right there in the middle. We'll pull this over and we'll add one more there. Okay. Now, this one, we are going to add to this. So you see we have all those paths. So we're just going to add to this. So we're going to add to this. So where this ends, it can jump right there instead of having to jump way down here. So now this, between this and this, right? Let's go ahead and add a jump. Now it's probably not going to add one because that distance is so tiny. So that distance is less, well, no it did. Oh, okay, I see why it did that. Let's go ahead and delete that. The reason it jumped clear down there is because of the start point. So we're going to go here to path and choose reverse. So now if we look at this little space between these two, try to add a jump, it probably will not add that jump. Because that space is just too small. Okay. So there we go. So now let's take a look at this in simulator mode and see how this is all going to work out. So we're going to start stitching. So our first piece stitches. Okay. So if we look here, you can see we have two jumps. So let's find out where those are and why we have them. Okay, so you see a problem there. And then where's the next one? Where we had our thread trim. Okay, so we did have that one thread trim in there. Okay, so let me look at that again. Now I already forgot where the problem was there. So open our frogs up here, and where is that problem again? Okay, so in the middle of the tail there. That's what's happening. All right, so close that out. So the issue is right here. And you know, I'm not super excited about how this actually is, but the issue is where this one stopped and this one started. There's no thread jump there. Okay, so I think I'm gonna just go ahead and create a new path here, put it back the way it was, because I did like that better. So no fill. We are going to break it right there. So we're going to have an extra thread trim, but that's okay. I'd rather have that and have it look right. So yes. So we will go ahead and convert that to satin first of all. Go ahead and choose apply and quit. We have an issue with our nodes. No? So that should convert to satin just fine. What's going on here? What if we swap our rails? We'll add some stitch density here. So yes. So we are going to have it stitch that direction, and yes, we're going to have a... All right, so we added a new path. So we need to look at this path. This path is path 19, and our path that we just created was path 95. So we need this above path 19. So we come down here, and let's figure out where path 19 is. Way down there. Okay, so this needs to go almost down to the bottom of our layer stack. So here's path 19 right there. So in order for this to stitch in order, this path 19, we need a thread trim to, don't we? Believe we do. So that's path 19. Let me just double check this. What's happening here? So it's ending on the outside currently. If we were to swap the second rail, that's not going to change anything. The first rail is going to stitch from the outside, and it's going to, okay, so we can do that. So then we don't need this running stitch where those two connect, because it's starting right there, and then it's ending. And so then this one, if we start it from, so we've got it swap and rails. What if we reverse both rails? It's going to start from the bottom, and you can see it's going to give us that not such good look. That's what we want right there. There we go. So now it's starting from the bottom. So now we do need a jump stitch between those two. So we'll click that and that. We'll add a jump stitch there. Okay. And then here, we're going to see what's happening here. So we really want to start right here. So let's try that. So it is starting there now. And you can see it's ending down here. So let's go ahead and choose apply and quit. So it's ending down here, and then this one, where does that gonna go? So let's go ahead and look at where that, so that should start at the bottom and go up. But let's see if it does, and it does. So that works. So maybe we did go ahead and get rid of our extra thread trim there that we didn't need. Then this one, so let's go back here. So that is 17, and then yes, and then okay. So now all that should stitch out in one fell swoop. Let's look. Just had to think that through a little bit more, and I think we got a better result. So you see we have one frog right there. And that's because we manually added a thread trim on that piece. So we don't need that anymore. This piece right here, we in params, we said to trim after. We don't need to trim after that anymore. So let's go ahead and turn that back off. And now let's look at this. So this part you can see is a little bit tedious, but it's very useful to do to have optimum sew out. So we have no frogs whatsoever, and let's just watch it stitch out. So it stitches that line, then that line, then that. Going to stitch out. I got to look at what's happening right here. Something weird's happening there that I don't think should be happening. So we'll look at that. But otherwise, it does seem to be stitching in a manageable order, and then we can come back through and nip those two little jumps. Really, there's three. There's 1, 2, 3 right there, but now that's going to stitch all the way straight through, and that's going to look great. So I'd be very pleased with that. So let's go ahead and close that out. But what is this? Okay, I see what's happening here. This is really overcomplicated, and I don't think it should be like that. So let's just change it, because it doesn't need to be like that. So we're just going to go like that. Get rid of that. That takes care of that. All right, so I am happy with that. So now let's look at this in stitch plan preview to see in realistic stitches to make sure we're happy with what it looks like now, because we did make a fair bit of changes there. So yes, I am happy with that. We do see those little thread jumps that we're going to come back in and trim. But something right there that we may want to address, because that little stitch really shouldn't be like that. And maybe even looks like right there. Looks like there's several right there. And I'll show you what that is. So what's happening here is these are so small that we need to change this to manual stitches. So we'll do that real quick. So we'll go into params to do that. And you'll see the difference here when we do that. So we're going to change these to manual. And we'll go ahead and choose apply and quit. And actually, I guess we're going to have to do something a little bit different. Let's look at that again. When we switch to manual, we can change our max stitch length to 2.5. Or no, we don't want to do that, because then we're kind of off manual. Let's look at our needle points. Okay, I think we can do that. So let's look at that again. So let's go ahead and go back into Stitch Plan Preview. What was happening is when you're doing running stitches and we define a certain stitch length, so yes, you see how those are now all hidden at that connection. It will change our needle point to get our minimum stitch length. And then sometimes it will cross over in a spot we don't want it to cross over. Whereas when we do manual stitches, it will respect the needle points, but then if it can do a 2.5 millimeter stitch, like in this case what we said to do, then it would do that. So yes, so that all looks good. That's going to all stitch out great, except for here. We could set automatic thread trim between here, here, and here and here, and not have those little thread jumps. But that's, you know, up to you and whether and your machine's capability. In my case, my machine would trim that. So this big one here, I would have it trim. This little one here and that little one there, I wouldn't. But that's just how my machine works. Okay, so up to this point, all of that is organized the way we want it to be organized. So now we just have to focus on this part of the fish. I do know that this is an island, so that, let's see here. Let's do this. Let me think here. Okay, the only thing on layer 1 is our image. And we don't have any other layers, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's take this and right click and choose Move To, and we'll call it layer 2. And then maybe I'll just delete layer 1. Do I want to do that? No, I don't think I do. Let's move that to the bottom though. Let's unlock it and move it to the bottom. There we go. And then we'll move it to the bottom. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete layer 1 now. So our original image is at the bottom, and then all of these pieces are our upper, we'll call it upper fishtail. Okay, and then we'll create a new layer and we'll call it main fish body. Okay, and then we'll take all of these pieces that make up the main fish body, right click and move to main fish body. Okay, so our upper fish tail, we can go ahead and just hide the visibility of that. So now we're only focused on the main fish body. And we have to think about how we want this to stitch out. I'm thinking this can be, because it's an island, that could stitch out first, and then we're going to have a thread trim on that. So let's go ahead and add the thread trim in params. So right here, trim after. So we'll go ahead and choose apply and quit. Now we don't have this inside our main fish body layer. So let's go ahead and put that back. So there you go. So that piece is done now. We can go ahead and hide the visibility of that. What else do we want to do? Well, let's see here. To think this through a second. How do we want to route all of this? I do know here, let's just start right here. We'll just start somewhere and work our way through here. So this piece here, we'll stitch, and then this piece, and then this piece, and then this piece, and then this piece. Then, once that's done, we'll stitch this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and then this piece, and then this piece, and this piece, thinking this through here. And then we'll do this piece and this piece. And then maybe not that piece. So yes, we'll catch that piece and then we'll come up here and we'll catch this, 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 and this. And then maybe we'll catch that. And then what if we what if we did this piece, then this piece, and then that big piece, and then this piece. Wow. And we called it good right there. So let's go ahead and take all of that. Somewhere we did not catch the fill here, but we need to. Somewhere in that collection. But let's go ahead and choose extensions, InkStitch, restack selected objects in the order. Okay. So let's just turn all that off for a moment. Okay. All right, so we have that turned off. Okay, so that's our fish scales. Then what was our next one? Okay, that's our fill. And then we have this little piece here. So this little guy here can go with our fish scales. So we can delete those two. And then that guy needs to be addressed. And then all of this needs to be addressed. Okay. So we were good up until right here. So what's going to happen here is this is going to stitch. And then we are going to go from here to probably, we'll do, so we'll go from there. We'll do this piece, then this piece, then this piece, and then this piece. And we'll go up over here to extensions, InkStitch, edit, restack objects in the selected order. Okay, so that takes care of all of that then. We do need to put that in place, and then these are going to be separate pieces. We are going to just go ahead and do a thread trim on all of those. So I'm going to go into params and say yes, do a thread trim after, which we do actually already have selected. So there we go. So that is good on that. So now let's go ahead and bring all this back to visibility, and we need to, before this stitches, this is number 52, we need this to stitch. So I don't know if we want to do it right before 52, but yeah, let's just see in simulator mode exactly how this is going to stitch right now, the order, and just put this in my brain here for a moment. So we're going to start here, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, and then we're going to pick up all those little details. We have a jump right there between those two, which we do not want. So we're going to have to fix that, which we will in this process. Then we're going to stitch those lines, and then we're going to stitch that little detail, stitch that, come back through. Then we're going to stitch that. And then our fill stitch is stitching, right, we need that before 52. Okay. Perfect. Okay, no worries. So the fill stitch needs to be before 52, not after. So that will stitch out first. All right. So that is stitching the order that we asked for. So that's part of the trouble. Now, if we look at this in simulator mode, you could see that even though this is stitching in the right order, obviously we haven't addressed our thread jumps. Now, we have far fewer than we started with, but obviously we still have quite a few. If we turn on our frogs, you see them all there, and that's not looking very good at all. So now that we have everything in the order, now we can make all of our connecting points here. All right, so now let's take one more look at it in simulator mode. Make sure everything is going to stitch in the order that we want it to. Slow this down here. So let's back up. Yes, that's all good. It's going to pick up all these pieces. Okay. So we still have lots of frogs we need to deal with. So let's just take this piece by piece, starting at the bottom here. So our scales are going to stitch first, and then our second piece of our scale, and then we're going to start over here with this piece. So we need this piece to start from left to right. So we got to go into params and look at that. And it's not, so we're going to swap our rails. Okay, it's still not, so then we're going to reverse both rails, and now it is. Okay, so step one is complete. And then we need this to also stitch from left to right. Does not, so we'll reverse both rails, and now it does. Now this next piece, because it's very, very close up here, does not need to stitch from left to right. So we can go ahead and stitch that from right to left. So we can go ahead and leave that one. So that's that piece. And then this piece, we do need it to stitch from left to right. So we will swap both rails. And then this next piece, because it's stitching right to left, we need this to go left to right as well. Because we need to do that is because this is our next piece. So this needs to go left to right as well. And it's not, so we're going to reverse both rails. Okay, so far so good. So now what we need to do is between each one of these pieces, we need to create our jumper. Okay. So this first piece didn't do what I expected. So let me look at this again. Make sure I'm doing this right. This is going to stitch from left to right, although it doesn't really have to. This first one, let's go and change that. The first one can stitch from right to left. So that, yeah. And then this one, because it's going to jump right there at the tip. So this one does need to go from left to right. And it is. So then we need the jumper between these two. Let's see here. Now we're asking to convert jumps that are 2 millimeters. If it's more than 2 millimeters, so there's the jump. So we'll go in here and set that to 0.1, and then we'll just double click here. Okay. So this is going to go ahead and stitch. That's going to connect. And then we're going to need a jumper between those two. So this is the part that you got to kind of think about. How's all this going to work out? So then we'll go here, and then 0.1, and then we have to route this. So we're going to double click here. So we're going to route this inside here, inside that satin, inside this satin. Come down here a little bit. Okay. And then we need to connect this piece to this piece. And we need this to stitch from top to bottom. So let's make sure that's happening first. And that is not. So let's reverse both rails. And now it is. So from this piece up here, let's look at this in the layers palette, to this piece. Okay, so that piece up there to this piece. We are going to create a jumper. Okay, so there's that piece. So we'll go back in here, 0.1. Okay, and then we need to hide that run stitch inside this satin, like so. Okay. So then we need to go from here to here, but this needs to stitch from the top down. So let's go ahead and get that done. That is not stitching from the top down, so we'll reverse both rails, and now it is. So then we'll need our running stitch from this one to the top of that one. So we'll go ahead and add that. So there's our run stitch, 0.1. Here, 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 and here. Okay. So that takes care of that. So then it's going to end down here, and then we need to do the same thing here. So what we want to do is just make sure that when we're going through this process, so this finishes, what's next? Make sure that we are thinking we are at the the right piece here. So let's go ahead and click on that. And we're going to swap those rails. apply and quit. And then we'll do the run stitch from this guy here to this one here. Control Alt J, hit apply. Okay. So now this, we'll go back here, 0.1. And route this. Now you see where it's ending over here. That's fine for it to do that. That's fine for it to end over here. Really, it could end over here, but for this purpose, it's really not a huge concern either way. Okay, so now that's routed perfectly. So it's going to go all the way up top here. I do like to bring it back. You don't have to, but we'll do it like that. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now let's go back in here. I just want to show you. So that's 78, that piece, and that piece. So these are the next three pieces. So where this ends, this has to begin. So we're going to go from top down. Double check that's happening. It's not, so we'll reverse both rails, so it does. Beautiful. And so then here, we'll need a little jump. Go from there to there. Control Alt J. Now, other embroidery software has some of this routing and pathing stuff built in, where it will automatically make our connections at the nearest connecting point. But a lot of this routing and pathing that we're doing, we have to do in other software too. So, you know, just because we're doing it here in this one, like I said, we have to do it in other software too. So they won't necessarily show you that. They'll just click, 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 and it'll all be done. But no, that's not really reality. So, okay. What do we got going on here? Let me look at that satin stitch here just a little bit. There's something happening there I caught that I wasn't liking too well. Yeah, you see, I guess that's okay. We'll leave it like that. That's not that big a deal. All right, so this is ending, and this is beginning. So we'll need a little jump to go between the two. Point one. Just bury all that underneath the satin there. All right, takes care of that. And then this has got a stitch from the bottom up. And it's not, so we'll reverse both of those. And now it's stitching from the bottom up. So then we can do our little jump from here to here. Apply. And close. So there's that. We'll do 0.1. Okay, so there's our little jump there. And let's go back to our layers palette. So you can see we just have a few more pieces here. So from here to here, we are going to go and stitch our fill here. So first of all, I don't think this is actually right. So Yes. So it's going to go from here to this piece here. So this is 48 to 55. Okay. So this has to stitch from the top down. So let's verify that it's happening. It is not, so we'll reverse both of the rails. We'll do automatic and swap rails then. That will get the job done. All right, so now we need to go from this piece down here all the way up here. Okay, so we're going to grab our jump right there, our little running stitch all the way up top there. Okay, so come back over here to point 1, and we'll work on burying this guy. So it's going to go there, it's going to go here, it's going to go here, and here. So it's going to come through where this satin's going to later cover up down here and there. You see how we're just tucking it in? There and there. Okay. All right. So that's good. What's our next piece? So this piece stitches and then 81. What is 81? Okay, that's our fill stitch. Okay, that's interesting. So this piece stitches and then our fill stitch is stitching, and then these guys are stitching. Okay, well, I don't think I want that to happen quite like that. I want these guys to stitch first. So this is 55. I want to go to have this one stitched next. So we're going to go here, then here, then here, then here, then here, then here, then here. Okay, so we're going to go to Extensions, InkStitch, Edit, Restack Objects in the order of the selection. So it's just going to recycle those right there. So then this is going to stitch, then this, then this, then this, and this, and this. Okay, so that's all good. So what we want to make sure now, so from here to here, let's see what direction this is stitching, because we want it to stitch the opposite direction of what it's stitching. So that's where we go to Path and choose Reverse. And now when we do the jump from here to here, watch what happens here. Now this is a little bit different because this line right here is going to be a bean stitch. So it's a little bit deceiving. Not sure what happened there. Why did we not have a jump stitch created there? We're definitely more than the 2 millimeters. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Unless because, maybe it won't do the jump stitch because this is a stroke in and of itself. So that could be why it won't do that running stitch. So what we're going to have to do then is we're going to have to create our own. So where this ends, so we'll come up here. Let's go into wireframe mode so we can see this better. All right, get out of wireframe mode. So this right here, we're going to go and put to dashes What is this one? Shouldn't really matter though. But this right here, so this is path 55. We need this to be right above path 55. So right above path 55. So that satin's going to stitch, then our running stitch, and then our first little stitch here. And then let's see how this one's stitching. Okay, so that is stitching from the bottom up. So we'll cancel that. So we need to reverse the path on that, because we do need it to stitch from the bottom down. But then between this path 52, right, or 82 rather, then we need to switch from 82 to 83. We need a little running stitch there too. So we'll come in here with our pen tool and we'll just click, click, click. We're going to go to the top like so, but then this has to be put in between 82 and 83. So we have 82, running stitch, 83. Okay, so that takes care of that. So then we need to look here. We're just going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just reverse the path, because it's probably going to need to be reversed. But let's go into params and verify that it's going to stitch from the top down. It is. Perfect. So then we need that little path between these two. So we're going to go back into wireframe mode. And we're going to just go from here to here to here. Okay. So this needs to be between, I guess between 83, path 84. All right. And you know what we're going to just do? We could actually simplify this a little bit. So we're just going to come over here, over here, over here, come back down here, over here, over here, and back down here. That would just simplify the whole process a little bit better. Yeah, and that'll be fine. That should work out just fine. Now on the where this ended here, 86, and then we're going to move on to 81. We do need to know where the start and end point is here. So let's go into params and just see where the beginning point is. Okay, not where we need it to be. So let's go ahead and choose apply and quit. So here's a little bit special thing. We need to go ahead and add some commands to this. So let's go do that. Let's go to InkStitch, commands, add commands, and the commands that we need is we need the fill, stitch, starting and ending positions. Okay, so let's get back to regular view here so we can see this. So the play is our where we want it to start. So we're ending this line and we're starting the fill, and then on the end we're going to put it down here somewhere, because I'm not exactly even sure what is our next piece after that. Okay, yes, so that will work now. Okay, so you have these commands that are kind of in our way, so we can actually come in here and just turn those off. Just so you know, you can, with those commands selected or the paths selected that those commands are attached to, we can come in here and under the view menu you can see we could display or hide object commands. So you can see we could turn those back on. And then we could turn them back off too. Same way. So If we select those commands and then just come back up here to extensions, InkStitch commands, the view menu, display height. So you could do it right here in the layers palette, or you could select them and do it the other way too. Okay, so that's just a little tidbit for you. Now what's going on here? What is that? Okay, that's because that line that we added had a fill. All right, so back here, that is our fill. Our next piece then is this little guy right here. Okay, so we need to come down for wherever that ended and this began. So let's go ahead and add our jump. Now we don't know, let's go ahead and hit apply. We don't know if this piece is starting from the top or the bottom. We don't actually know what the situation is there. So this is our fill and this is our satin. And I'm not quite sure why it's not creating us a jump stitch between the two, because it should have done that. First of all, what is the next piece after that? The next piece after that is this, and then the next piece after that is that. Okay, so first of all, we want this to start at the top and stitch down. So let's make sure it's doing that. It's not, so let's reverse both rails. Okay, let's not do that. Let's swap rails. Now it's going top down. Perfect. Okay, and so then from there, from that piece all the way up to this piece, but this piece needs to start here on the left. So this piece needs to go left to right. So let's make sure that's doing that. It's not, so let's swap both rails or reverse rails. And there we go. So now it's stitching in the right order. Then this has to also stitch basically from top down. So we'll make sure that's happening. It is. Excellent. So now we just need some connection lines. So we need from this piece to this piece. Let's start there. Hit apply. Okay, so there is our jump. Now this, we're gonna have to take some fancy maneuver in here. So that's our jump, and we're gonna hide it all the way. So right here, we'll come down, I guess. Double click again, right there. Double click again, right there. Double click again, right there. Right there. Right there. 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 Go right here. There. And we'll come over here. There. There. And there. So we'll do something like that. Okay? All right. Excellent. Okay, then we'll come back around, and then where this ends, this one's going to begin, so we don't need any type of jump there, and then it's going to come down and finish off here. Now we do still need a jump from this satin to this fill. So let's come back over here. So we know that we'll grab our pen tool here. Let's go into wireframe mode. That fill is ending right about there. And then this satin is starting basically right there. Okay, so this piece here is 81, and then this piece here is 58. But we need that one we just created in between 81 and 58, which now we have. Okay, clear as mud, I know. So so there's our path, and then our 58 piece, our path, our running stitch all the way over to the top of the next satin, and what is next here? The big one. The big one's next. Okay, so let's select those two, and let's do our jump. So this is going to be kind of challenging a little bit. So you see that big jump happening. So now we're going to come in here to do 0.1. All right, so now we got to route this. So we'll start up top here. We're just going to put this right in the center of our satin here. All right, so now we've got our run stitch buried where we need to bury it underneath that satin for that path, so that's good. And then what is our next piece going to be? So that is, what is that? That's our satin. So what is... Okay, so that's a fill of our mouth, and then that. Okay. All right. So this ends, and then the fill begins. Perfect. So we will go ahead and manually add a little jump here to the fill. Okay. So, but we need to put that right after this. So that's 44. So we need to move that down. Then our run stitch, and then we need to add some commands so we know where the start and end is here. So InkStitch commands, add commands. We do need the fill stitch start and end here. We'll go ahead and click close. So the start needs to be right where our run stitch was, and then our ending, we'll have it up here. Let's go ahead and turn the visibility of those two off. So we've defined that now. And then, so that is going to be, what is that going to be? So what is 52? Okay, so there is our fill stitch inset there, and then our next piece is this satin, which we want to go from left to right. So let's see that it does do that. It does not. So let's reverse both rails. Okay, so now it gets strange, so we're going to choose swap rails, and that does come from top to bottom, but we do need a thread trim after that object as well. So we'll go ahead and do it that way. Okay. So so then we need a little run stitch from our fill to the start of our satin. So let's go ahead and add that. Okay, so let's go back into our stroke here. We'll do 0.1. And then we will come in here. There we go. We pads it up top there. And there we go. Okay, so now that's all in place. I am going to add one more line there. Okay, so now that's all in place like it should be. So it's going to come around and trim. So when this piece finishes, it's going to trim. So then what is the next piece? Well, the next piece is our eye, which we want to go ahead and trim after that piece too. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. We'll just go into params and do that. That's already been set for trim. Excellent. So then the next piece is our running stitch. And then the piece after that is this little guy here. So there should not be a jump stitch between those two. So we don't have to worry about that, I don't think. So we have our little nostril, the run stitch of our eye, the eye itself. Now here we will have, where this ends and this one begins, we will have a little jumper. So let's go ahead and apply that. It's not saying we do, and I'm not sure why. Let's try that again, because we definitely should have a little jump stitch between those two. But it's not giving us one. All right, so first of all, let's check the params here on our satin. We want this to stitch from the top down, and it is not. So let's swap the rails, and now it is. So that's fine. So let's see what this little guy does. Make sure it's satin, first of all. And it is. So that's good. But why is it not giving us our little jumper? Let's try that one more time. Nope, it doesn't want to. So we need to create one. Okay, so where this one's ending, we need to get up to this one. So we are going to grab our pen tool here, and we're just going to click here, 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 come up here, right there. Okay, but now we need that between those two. So this is path 67, so we need that in between. So there's the eye, inside of our eye, that's the top of, that's our path, and that's our satin, which is going to finish over here. And then this satin here, we want to start from the, let's do the bottom up. So it is stitching from the bottom up, and so therefore I don't think we necessarily need a jump stitch between those two. I am going to come in here and just extend this rail just a little bit, and I'll do the same thing here because I just want that little eyeshadow to go just a little bit past there. All right, and then we need a thread trim after this object. So let's go into params and make sure we have one. I think that's already been set, but let's just double check it. You know, let's go ahead and, you know what I was thinking. So we do want to do a trim after, apply and quit. We were asking for a little jump between our eyeball and our satin. And I think the reason we didn't get it is because we already had a param on our eyeball to do a thread trim. And see that? So that's why it was not giving us our thread jump the way we wanted it to. So devil's in the details. I always say that, devil's in the details. This little guy, believe it or not, should now be totally set to go. Now it took us some work to get there, but we did finally get there. So we're going to turn that on. We'll turn that on. Turn that on. We should have one completed design now, all properly pathed. Let's go into simulator and make sure everything is set to go here. So we will fast forward through all of this. Nothing too glaring. Let's turn on our frogs. Whoa. Okay. So we do have some frogs still. So we need to eliminate those. So we have 15 now, which is good. It's better than we started with. But sometimes these frogs are actually showing us thread trims. So that's what that's showing us. That's a thread trim. And this is a thread trim going up to the start of that up there, okay? So our next frog, let's zoom in here. Our next frog, if we hit the plus key on our keyboard, we can just kind of go through here. Okay, so our next frog is really a thread trim. That's going to take us down to our lower part where we're starting on our lower part. Okay. Now this frog right here is coming up. We definitely need to get rid of. So we'll see what's happening there. It's jumping from there to there. So it's the fourth one that it's jumping. It's on the fourth one, and I'll show you why that's happening. It's an easy fix. So this is 1, 2, 3. It's this one right here. The reason it's jumping is because it's starting right there. So we can verify that in params. And you can see it's starting right there. So we need it to stitch from top down, but we so let's choose swap rails and let's choose reverse first rail. Okay, that's not going to do it. Reverse the second rail. No. So what do we need to do here? So we need this top down, but we need it, instead of stitching here, we need to start there. So that got it. See how it's starting there? That's what we needed. All right. So now let's go back into simulator mode. Now that we got that first problem resolved. So I'm going to go back in. Take a look at our frogs. Okay, I went into params. I should not have gone into params. My bad. Need to go into simulator. All right, so turn back on our frogs. So you can see here we're coming up. That frog is our thread jump, or our thread trim, to go from the top of our fish to the bottom. So we're fine there. But why do we have a frog there? And another frog there. I'm going to fix those lines. We should not have that problem there. But we got some more frogs right here that we shouldn't have. Okay. So yes, we got a bunch of mess there, but that's fine. We'll fix that. I know what the issue is there. So we'll fast forward a little bit and see why we have a frog right there. All right, I'm going to take a look at that too. That connection there. Now these frogs down here, those are just thread trims. That one's a thread trim. That one's a thread trim over to the eye. And then we have 3 for that one, and that one. Okay, so really where our problem is in these lines. We've got big issues there in those lines. And then right there we have a thread jump right there that we shouldn't have right there. So we got to look at that. Okay, so those are kind of where our issues are. So no worries. So we could fix this line issue. Let's go in here and let's delete that. Then we have this line connecting, which we can delete. No, maybe we can't. Let's see what we got here. So we've got some lines that we don't want or need. That one. What's this? Let's zoom in here a little bit. We don't want this. So what is... Okay. So yes, what we decided was we don't want this right here. Okay, so we still have that. Excellent. And then we don't want... Let's zoom in tight here, because we don't want that. Okay. Actually, we do want that. That's okay. That path is okay. So what we're going to do from... So that path is okay. Let's zoom in tight here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab this, come down here, and then we're going to come up here, down here, come back up, and back down, come over. We're going to go up, down, over. Then we're going to go up, down, over. Then we're going to go up, down. Okay, so that is fine. Now earlier what we created, we were going to do those as bean stitches, okay? So now what I want to do is I want that one I'm going to leave, but then I'm going to delete that one, this one, that one, and this one. Okay, so let's go back, figure this out here. Go back up to this. So what is this? That is... Let me figure this out here. What is 107? Let's turn it off and on. Okay. So and then it's going to come back and stitch that, which I don't think we want. So 107 is finishing from this satin and coming up and doing those. That's what 107 is doing. Okay, and then path 81 is our fill stitch. But where is the starting point of our fill stitch? Is right there. Okay, so that makes sense that our starting position would be there. All right, so that works. That should take care of that issue. So let's look at just that much of it. It's a little confusing there, but I think we got it. So let's go ahead and look at our frogs. So this frog is the jump from the top to there. Okay, that's unavoidable. And then this frog is right there. So we still have that issue right there that we have to fix. And I think I know what that issue is. So we did fix all of that issue, which is good. All right, so let's go back and take a look at that issue. So this is going to go, path 81 is the fill stitch, and then our next thing is, let's see here, what is that? Let's see what direction this is stitching in. I think that's our issue. Nope, that's not our issue. It's stitching from the top down. So 81 is our fill, and then we have a run stitch is our next piece down to our path 58 here. Wow. All right, so let's just select. So now I just want to study 81, 111, and 58. Just those three pieces. Because something kind of strange is happening here. So let's look at just those three pieces. So our fill is finishing up. Okay. Let's turn on our frog so we can see where the frog is. And then it should start with our running stitch. I don't know why it's doing that. That's kind of weird. So you see that it's advancing a couple of stitches. Let's back up here because I guess I already saw where that jump is. It's right there. I wonder if somehow that's a different color? No? I don't know what's happening there. What's causing that? That's very strange. Oh, you know what? I know what's causing that. I do know what's causing that. Okay. This probably has a thread trim applied to it. So let's go in there. Because it's like, nope, that should not be that way. But that's probably what's happened. Indeed. So it has. And when I did the jump stitch thing earlier, way earlier, it wasn't doing it because we had the thread trim in there. So now, yes. Now, let's go back into simulator mode. Now we can see exactly what's happening here. So we'll turn on our frogs, and we know that this is a thread trim going from the upper bridge to the lower. then we know that this is a thread trim to go to the top of our fish. And then this we know is a thread trim to go to the bottom of our fish. So far so good. And then coming along here. And then these are, this guy is the eye, which we couldn't avoid, and then the nostril rather, then the eye, which we can't avoid, and then the 3 trims here. Okay, so all that's pretty good. Now, there is kind of a issue. The only issue that I really have left that is not super ideal, but in this particular situation, it's not a huge deal. This jump is coming over finished embroidery, and it's coming down to the bottom of this. The main takeaway here is that if your machine does not do thread trims, okay, then we would have to manually cut these, okay, and that's not going to be a huge deal, except for the fact that this satin is covering up, so you'd have to trim this jump on both sides, and this satin is covering up the end of this thread jump a little bit, but it's not too big a deal. I'm reasonably pleased with how all of this looks. And if we go into our info panel, you can see we still have 8 thread jumps. Now the one thing that's a little bit deceptive here is there really isn't 8 thread jumps, because this is actually counting thread trims too for some reason. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated. We have these 3 thread jumps here, and then yes, we have 2. No, these are all 3. All 3 of those are thread trims. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So these are not actually thread jumps. Those are actually thread trims. And then you say, well, we have 6 thread trims too. So it's a little bit confusing there. But at any rate, that's as good as we can get now. So now let's go ahead, one last look and see a stitch plan preview here. And let's go ahead and look at it. We'll pull it out here by itself. Take a look at it. So you can see, oh, we don't have our scales turned on. So let's do that. Let's turn on, I forgot our scales. Where is our scales here? So we'll turn on that and that. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do stitch plan preview. Now, I will say this. There is one thing that does bug me a little bit about this artwork, and I'll explain here what that is. I feel like we did a pretty good representation of the original image. So let's go ahead and pull this away here. If you look here, we have the fin of the fish here, and those pieces I think are meant to represent the fin on the other side of the fish. You can see that's what we have here too, but to me it just doesn't quite look right. I don't know, but so you may decide to go ahead and make those a little bit wider satin column instead of the run stitches there that we did. But if you kind of scrutinize this a little bit, we want to see, see this right here? See that line right there? That we may want to adjust. but everything else is hidden. So I think we're good. Oh, look at here. There's one right there, and maybe one there and there. You see those little things poking out there? Those we want to be kind of mindful of. So let's look at those. So what is happening here? Let me look at where it's happening. So right there at the top of that fill into that curve. Okay. So right here, is it maybe that one? Let's try and set the params for this to manual. So this is a pathing line, so we'll do manual, but we'll also do the max stitch length of 2.5. Okay. We'll hit apply. Now I don't know for sure that that's going to resolve that, but so that's poking out right there. And then I think we have one there and there. So I don't know that that's true. Let's go ahead and see if it matters, but I don't think that's going to matter. So let's go to manual and let's do our max stitch length at 2.5. Although I'm not totally convinced that that is going to fix the issue there. You know, it's very minute right there, but that is more so a problem solved. And then this. So going from that one to that one, there's that line there that I don't think should be there. So let's look at that. So when we're going from, what's this one? So it feels like the problem is when we're going from this one to that one. That's where I think the problem is. So let's do that. And we'll do manual, and we will do max stitch length of 2.5. Apply and quit. All right. So I don't know that that really fixes our issue, but let's look at it. Back in Stitch Plan Preview, we are not going to override the last one. We'll compare the two. All right. So now let's look at these and just study those. So if you look here, between those two, and look here, see that extra line right there? That does not exist down here. Okay? So that's good. And then you see here, that right there, we took care of that too. And then we've got these two little guys that are poking out. Now, I don't know if we took care of that. We took care of one, but it looks like we didn't take care of the other one. Okay? So that's good. So we can go back up here and look at that. Let's see here. That's kind of strange that that's happening like it's happening. But let's go ahead and just go into params. And we will just make that manual. And the max stitch length at 2.5. Okay. All right. So now let's look at it one more time. And hit apply. I wish when it did those jump stitches that we could just always do manual, and you know those settings that I use all the time, go switch over to manual, and then instead of a running stitch. But it doesn't give us that option. But it'd be cool if it did. Now if we look here, you can see that tiny little thread's gone. That's gone. That's gone. Gone, gone, gone. So you see that little bitty thread right there? See that little bitty overlap? It really is gone. No more overlap. Devil's in the details. So look for those little things, okay? And I think you'll find that you'll have better embroidery results because of it. So now what I really want to do is I want to take this to the embroidery machine and stitch it out and see how good it does or doesn't do. But that's it. That is routing and pathing in a nutshell. You get through this, you'll get through anything. But you can see it is a tedious and involved process, but it will pay off in the end because the stitch out will be so much better. You won't have no issues stitching this out, no thread breaks. There's nothing there that's going to cause a significant issue for you. So, thanks for watching.